From the crossroads of the world, in the heart of Times Square, welcome to Agent Brew Executive Sessions. I'm your host, Eric Zollinger of Realty Co. This is a podcast that percolates real estate insights. We speak to the C-suite, to those people that have walked the path before us, but are truly making our industry a better place. And today it is my honor and pleasure to welcome Michael C. Scarafile, the president and CEO of Carolina One Real Estate. Welcome, Michael. It's so good to see you.
Eric, thanks for having me.
So I always like to start with the full transparency, how we know one another. You are one of Realty Co's partners through Realty Alliance, and I have had the honor and pleasure of coming to the Carolina One MarTech this past, I think it was September, right?
Yeah, last September, our marketing and technology trade show. We were glad to have you guys.
What a great event. And I have to say, the hospitality was fantastic and just a really, really nice event. Well done on curating it. And we look forward to attending in the future.
Absolutely. One of the things that we're really blessed with, while we've done some geographic expansion not too far away in the last year and a half, for most of our 60 plus years in existence, all of our agents and all of our offices have been relatively close to one another.
Oh,
And so we're really blessed. The bulk of I have nearly 1,000 agents within 30 minutes of my desk. And so the bulk of our events we're able to do live and in person. So we're able to get 6, 7, 800 agents at a live in-person trade show each year, which is really a great, not only culture event, but super high energy.
so let's start with your elevator pitch. Who are you, your company? I mean, you've already given it a little bit, but I know you guys are the largest brokerage in Carolina, in the Carolinas, I should say. And
Well, we might have a fight there. We are certainly the largest brokerage in South Carolina,
okay,
and so I'll proudly claim that. Howard Hanna does market themselves as the largest brokerage in the Carolinas because they've got Charlotte and a little bit in South Carolina. So they're trying to roll them together. We can fight at the state line.
fantastic, great. So tell us about you and Carolina One.
Brief introduction of myself, and then I'll give you my one-line elevator pitch, or however you want to say it. My name is Michael Scarafile. I am a second generation, what they say, SOB, son of a broker. My mother got into the business in the late 70s when real estate was a little bit different. I came out of law school and practiced law as a litigator for a while before joining the company as general counsel and took over as president in 2011 and CEO for her in 2020. So, long story short, we are a large, but still, I think, culturally small family-owned business operating in the Grand Strand, the Myrtle Beach area, primarily in Charleston, where we've been for 60 years, and also in Columbia, South Carolina, under the Home Advantage Realty brand. Elevator pitch, one line, or whatever you want to call it. What I would say is that we help people achieve their goals through real estate. And whether that's our employees, our agents, our buyers, or our sellers, or our homeowners, we have vacation rentals and property management divisions. Most of us have goals and dreams we want to achieve, and we think there's a way to do that through real estate, and that's our focus.
It's fantastic. I also have to say you have the best swag that I have seen any other firm have across the
Well,
country.
I've got a great RLTY Agent Brew mug here, so you're not doing too bad yourself.
That's about all we have with a nice little bag, but I have to say my dog loves um, the dog toy. The best water bottle I've ever had is the one where it lights up down and also above. And the other one that I love that I use all the time, believe it or not, is the portable cooler.
Yep.
I mean
Yep, I've
that's
got I've
just
got, I've got one in my freezer as well. But at the end of the day, and I'm sure we'll get into this more during the conversation, technology is great.
Mhm.
My first job in this business was when I was 16 years old. Technology is great, but real estate is still, in the majority of aspects, done the same way it was done however many years ago, 37 years ago, when I had that job, a summer job running one of our sales offices. The tech's completely different. How agents do their job is completely different, but it's still person to person.
It's a
And
relationship business.
it is. And
AI
you
will
know
never
what?
take
If
that
you're,
away. And um,
yeah, and if your realtor can give you a Carolina One branded dog bowl or, some sort of swag, or they're wearing it in the grocery store, you'd be amazed how much, maybe the oldest, lowest tech form of advertising, but how much interest and conversations that starts.
I always like to say that real estate is just what happens on the side. It's the relationships that you build for decades, and just and being top of mind. So this is a great.
Absolutely. I've said in a similar way, real estate is one of the professions that will allow you to monetize your people skills.
Yeah, I love that.
We can teach you the rest. We can teach you the tech. We can teach you the forms. The class it's not 3 years of law school. It's not overly burdensome, which is what makes the industry amazing. Downsides too. But if you're able to create an environment where people trust you, you can make money in real estate.
Yeah, absolutely. So what would you say is the biggest challenge facing the industry? Since you're president and CEO of Carolina One, we'll start first with what is your biggest challenge as a broker owner? And then we'll ask, what is the biggest challenge for an agent?
Um, as a broker owner, I think the greatest challenge is probably agent engagement.
Yeah.
We started off by talking about the trade show, and some of those culture-based live in-person activities. We certainly have a lot less square footage per agent than we used to, but we believe in the physical space model. We believe in neighborhood offices. Now, Charleston's going to be different than some places, but we believe in non-competing brokers. Its goal is to help their agents be successful. But it's certainly challenging in today's world, especially with technology and other things, to create those environments that agents want to be in, to create, whether it's sales meeting or training or other content that draws them in to where they want to be there in person and be with one another. I think people do better with people. And I think that is part of the key to success. You're sitting in an office right now. It doesn't mean we're not going to be doing lots of things remotely, but I think creating that culture and that level of agent engagement is one of the biggest challenges we certainly see now, and certainly post COVID, and certainly continuing to be an issue.
Are you able to have the agents come back to the office and on a regular basis?
Absolutely. So again, the physical footprint of real estate companies in general has gotten smaller.
Yeah.
So we certainly have more agents per office and therefore less square footage per agent. But yes, we still do live in-person training, live sales meetings, caravans, all kinds of things. Again, Charleston's a little different than some big cities. Those things still are powerful here. And we want agents to get together. Not only are they sharing activities and other things, but I like to, one of the questions you're going to ask me later, I think you said something about hobbies. I like to run,
Hmm.
um, and I do that. I think it's calming and cooling and soothing and all of those things. I run faster when I run a race with other people.
100%. As a fellow runner and cyclist, when you have other people in that competition, um, just like on my Peloton classes, if I'm in a live class that there's other people there that I can see on the leaderboard versus me just doing my own class, I definitely work 50% times harder when there's that other person there.
100%. And so I understand there are models that'll say, just run on your own. You don't need to pay anybody for a race. You don't need to go out there with other people. You can just go run in the street. And they're right. But I will run faster with other people. And we
Yes.
think our agents run faster because of the other agents they're associated with in their office. So we work hard to pull them into the office as much as we can, certainly to engage them. Our meetings are in person, but also streamed. So we're going to try to appeal to everybody, meet them where they are. But, they run faster together.
I started the industry in 1999 at 25 years old. The Everything was different back then. I mean, I was partly a rock star because I could put a border on my Word document.
Yep.
when show sheets were just starting to come out. Um, but I learned so much from being in the office, hearing the brokers talk, just being able to engage with other assistants, because at that point, teams weren't even in existence then. So I'm so glad to hear that this is such a major part of your model, and because it certainly shows. And you are a firm that hires new agents, I noticed.
We do.
And so it was so much fun being able to engage with them at the trade show and have them come on Agent Brew and just talk about, what are their aspirations in the industry. So to do this a little bit more about on you, what would you say are some of your greatest wins since you've been president and CEO?
You talked about new agents.
Yeah.
So probably going back, gosh, almost 10 years ago now. Everybody likes to talk about things they're good at.
Hmm.
And, nobody goes around and says, we're bad at this or we're bad at that. So we're great at hiring and training new agents. The problem is, as with anything, if you don't measure it, maybe it's real, maybe it's not, maybe it's just in your head.
Hmm.
And so we kind of looked back and said, okay, what is the first year agent who joins our MLS doing in their first year? And what is our agent doing?
Yeah.
And I think I expected probably much different results than I saw. And while it was better, I'd probably say it was incrementally better. So that was kind of a little disheartening.
Yeah.
Um, and, again, in consultation with our leadership team and our trainer, we then rolled out a launch program for new agents. And that's primarily 90 days in person. Not every day. It's, 3.5 days a week. They do go to their office one day, but we really thought back to almost like, basic training. You wouldn't take a young recruit and put them in a unit with a gun because obviously they might hurt themselves or someone else.
Right.
And that's kind of what we were doing with agents. We were signing them up, putting them in an office. There might be one or two or three new agents per office at any given time. And it was hard to get traction. So now they come to our corporate training center for the launch program. They're in that program for 90 days. There's 2 or 3 new agents per office. So collectively, a class might be 30 or 40 people.
Oh, wow.
They
Okay.
build that bond and that camaraderie as they all try to get this thing we call a real estate career started and get some of that momentum focused on all of those things that new agents need to be focused on. Sadly, some don't make it, but I'd rather figure that out in that process.
Right. Right.
And the ones that do then kind of graduate to their sales office after that. And what we were able to track is what would have been incremental growth over what a first year agent would have done in MLS really became exponential growth. And now our first year agent does 4.5 times what an agent entering MLS does on their own. And
Wow.
so those are numbers that we're
And those are
proud of.
great recruiting numbers, right? So that you
They
want to
are
make
great
sure.
recruiting numbers. You know, Everybody plays in different spaces, and
Mhm.
and we're not. The other thing, I'll translate that a little bit. I'll back up for a second. The other thing I think has been a success for me during my tenure is getting us comfortable with who we are and who we aren't. And I use the example with our leadership team sometimes that, if you run the best steakhouse in town, you don't apologize if a vegetarian walks by because they don't want to eat there. Nothing wrong with being a vegetarian, but the steakhouse knows who they are. They're proud of that, and they
Right.
can't go and apologize for it. And so I think there was probably a time where we probably thought, hey, we're a home for all kinds of agents. But at the end of the day, if you want to sell 1 or 2 houses a year to, maybe your neighbor or your family members, we're probably not a good brokerage for you. We're probably
Mhm.
going to be too expensive because we're going to provide a lot of things that you're not going to use. You're not
Right.
necessarily going to be using training. You're not going to come in the office. You're not going to use the legal counsel we have or other things. So, it's not really going to work. So we really cater to full-time agents or new agents who are looking to build a career to be full-time
Right.
agents. Of course, we have people transitioning from other careers, but we're not a great fit for part-time agents. There are other models that are cheaper that are better suited for that. And so I think we've done a really good job of being comfortable with who we are and who we aren't.
That's great. So on the flip side of that, any transformational losses? I mean, one could say you went down the road of looking at the MLS and first time agent, so you made the pivot. But were there any other things that you didn't like, and then you're like, oh, we need to change this?
Probably a couple things stand out. We opened a property management division at one time that went well. I wouldn't necessarily initially we branded it to the same as the company name, and I wouldn't recommend that. Tenants and landlords can also often be unhappy, and we didn't really need it tied to the real estate company. But after that was successful, we decided to get in the insurance business, and so we, I think, arrogantly said, "Well, we can just do this on our own." And we tried to open an organic or insurance agency, and we're not successful in it after a while of beating our heads against the wall and digging a little bit of a hole. And then we really took a step back and said, just like our real estate brokerage, if we were hiring a realtor, we would look for somebody who was experienced and seasoned and had seen different markets and different things. And so we did a full reboot on that, partnered with a family owned local agency that had been in Charleston for a long, long time, knows what they're doing. And now our insurance operation is wildly successful. And I think out of that, I'd much rather have part of something with a seasoned partner that can best serve the consumer than try to hang on to all of it myself and not do it well. So we definitely learned that. I also learned the power of a rainy day fund when COVID came along.
Yes.
My mother bought her partner out in the summer of 2006, which was not the best time to buy a real estate brokerage.
No, no, I because of what was about to come, right? And so it's
Yeah, things, by 2009, sales were off nearly 60%. So it was an interesting time. But it was fine. What we had hoped to pay off in, 10 years of operations took maybe 14. But I think I did get a little laser focused with, retiring that debt and doing some of
yeah.
those things. So I actually made the last debt payment in March of 2020, ahead of schedule.
Only to
To
then
2 weeks
have
later being figured out, being like, can I get that payment back and maybe have a little more in the bank? But everything worked out okay. But it was definitely a good lesson for the rainy day fund
yeah.
and knowing that we never know actually when it could be raining.
Well, you mentioned it earlier in the transformational loss with the insurance company and partners. So we are a partner of Carolina One. So of all of our spokes of service, what has been the greatest response from your agents that you have heard that they've liked the most from what Realty Co offers?
I think agents are in, all different kind of categories. And
Yes.
so I think in my mind, when we talk about one of the challenges being agent engagement, I think we've got to segment the different groups of agents. And I think we're seeing more and more of that in the current marketplace. And as we see more and more teams growing, more and more top tier agents doing more and more of the business,
Hmm.
uh, I think them running their business like a business is critical. And I think so many of them don't. I mean, so many agents in general don't even have a business plan, let alone a tax setup or a legal structure. And so I think when you look at RLTY Legal on the side of helping agents and teams set up their legal structure to be an LLC, the tax benefits and savings that they can do through that, and those sorts of things, I think is critically important to agents, and I think really resonates with some of the high-end producers, especially if they'll slow down long enough to really look at their business and decide where do I need to spend money, but where do I need to invest money for the success of my business. And so in those components, I think that's critically important in helping them understand that and getting the legal structure that is most beneficial to them. We've also got, different segments of the market. So it is a challenging market environment, and there are going to need agents I know you guys told some stories early on about some high-end cash needs, but there are going to be, agents in just um, day-to-day life that, on some of the commission advance options that provide them some um,
Well, it's all about cash flow, right? As an entrepreneur, whether you're running a restaurant, a manufacturing company, or a real estate agent, the cash flow is what's important. And you, as a president and CEO, when I had my own brokerage, um, there wasn't a realty co around. I owned mine 2010 to 2013, and so I had to go to Chase and ask for an equity line of credit. But that took such a long time to put into place, and it was very tedious for us to be
absolutely
able to offer it on a per transaction basis. I don't know about you in South Carolina, but in New York City in 1999, commission advancing was like a four-letter word. It was like you were going to some pawnbroker to you didn't
correct.
talk about it, and you had to have your manager's approval, and there was all this shame, and people would look at you like,
And
so
there's some crazy numbers out there. I mean, to your point, we have a line of credit for the business, absolutely, especially seasonally and other things, and sometimes things just make sense. So you'll pull down on something and pay down on something, and that's how you would run a large business. What I don't think most agents realize is that an agent team doing, I mean, anywhere from 100,000 to 1 million to 2 or 3 million in GCI is bigger than most neighborhood businesses. And
right.
they need to run them that way. But you're right, as an independent contractor, commission based business, going out and getting that business line that the company might have isn't really realistic. But those models that have been out there on the commission side, I mean, you're talking about things that can be, payday lending type numbers. And
Yeah,
so there's always going to be a cost on any sort of loan or cash flow issue. So,
but
let's not
you
fool
can write
ourselves.
ours off.
Correct. Right. Absolutely. But let's not fool ourselves. But it also has to be a number that you can,
Right, makes
stay in a
sense.
lit room.
So let's play the gratitude game. So this is rose, rose, thorn, bud. But I love how you just raised the coffee mug right at the time, as I say. But let's
That's
do it
right.
with a twist of coffee. So it would be then the aroma, the actual brew, the grounds, and then the fresh beans. So um, the aroma. So Michael, do you drink coffee?
I do.
Okay, so I happen to love to grind my own beans every morning, and I just love that aroma that it brings. So one might say it's what gets you out of bed. What motivates you and gets you out of bed in the morning?
You know, I will. So I'll say two different things. First, um, I do still go back to helping people achieve their goals through real estate.
Hmm.
I wish every one of our agents a cash buyer from New York that wants to come down and buy a beach house tomorrow, and we will be glad to help them and take their money. But you know, I also was listening to CNBC yesterday morning, and they were talking about, the net worth of a homeowner being 40 plus times greater than that of a renter. Or, I talk to people on, or you look on Facebook or Instagram on Christmas morning or the first day of school, and you look at the pictures that are in people's homes and in front of the front door on the first day of school, and we get to play a part in that.
Yeah,
So, I'm very passionate. Not only is housing a primary need, but it's the largest wealth creation tool exists on the planet in mass scale.
right.
Obviously we should have bought gold a couple years ago, and that would have been another great topic. But
Right.
we're not talking about buying gold. So as a family, we've always been critically passionate. And it's not the right term, but that's all right. Just extremely passionate about helping people with their housing needs and achieving their goals through real estate. So that's my big picture why. On the business, we have, expanded into some other geographic markets in the recent past, and that's certainly fun. We've done a lot of things to continue to reinvent ourselves. I think challenging markets are where great companies and leaders move forward. And so, I do think it's exciting, challenging times, and I'm excited to come to the office in the morning.
That's great. So you kind of just answered because you said that's what our why is, but what is your why? That the brew, like It's that first cup of coffee that sustains you, gets you going through the day. One might say it's what is your why? So, you as a broker owner, what is your why?
Well, considering my wife may see this, if I didn't mention her and the kids,
Yeah,
I'd probably be in big trouble. I've mentioned a couple of times that we're a family-owned business.
yeah.
One of certainly the biggest professional and personal joys that I have had in my life was the opportunity to work with my mother, who was our CEO before me. It's great. I remember the first time one of my kids says, "Why do you call grandma by her first name?" And I remember a Realty Alliance meeting I was at, and someone pulled me aside and said, you know, it's great to have the professional relationship with your mother, but you probably shouldn't use mom in a business setting. Somebody goes, "That's a great idea. I'm gonna go ask my mom and get back to you."
Yeah.
So having the opportunity to work with Patty on a professional level and add that whole new dimension to our life and relationship was truly rewarding. But obviously, for me, that ties back to the family component.
Yeah.
That my brother and his wife are one of our top agent teams. My wife was an agent. I actually met her inside the company.
Oh,
Um,
wow. Oh my gosh.
so that was, obviously the greatest gift to me that real estate has given me. We've got two boys. Vito is 16, in 10th grade, working, playing basketball, doing lots of 10th grade things. And
And
Leo
driving a
is
car now if he's 16?
driving a car. Got one for Christmas. So we checked that off the bucket list of the car in the driveway with the bow. And Leo is 12 in 7th grade, and Leo has asked me, how old do you have to be to get your real estate license? Now, I don't know if that'll be a good idea or not, but we'll see. He,
Well, I
he would
mean,
he would
it's
be a great guest.
never too young to
But
start, right?
he gets it for sure. So, obviously the family component for me, for all of us, and that's one of the reasons why for me I'm so passionate about the first day school pictures,
Yeah,
or reminding agents that you get to be a part of kids coming around the corner or down the stairs, or unfortunately part of people's worst times of their lives, whether it's
right.
death or divorce or other things. The 5 Ds of real estate. We're there for all of them, and that's I think why we do it.
Yeah. So on the thorn side, is there anything right now causing you frustration or a major obstacle?
One of the best and worst things about real estate on the professional side is there's not a super high barrier of entry. So, that's great. I mean, we've got, you know, single mothers who change their entire lives by getting into real estate and willing to work hard and get that ball rolling and, stay in front of it and now have a team and, if, change the trajectory for them and their family. And that's huge. It's difficult to go to law school for 3 years or whatever. So, that low barrier of entry is amazing. It also creates problems because, you know, there's not that high of a barrier to entry to get in. And, if you look at, I don't know if our MLS is emblematic or representative of the country. I think it's pretty close based on some NAR stats. Nearly half the agents in our MLS will do one or less transactions this year.
Yeah.
Now, some of those people are like me. I've got my license. Our brokers have their license. We don't practice real estate on an active basis, so some will be there.
Yeah, I'm the same way.
So there's a segment of that. There are also people out there doing it as a hobby, which is difficult. Could you
Yeah.
imagine if you went to the, hospital and the doctor said, "Well, I did surgery last year, so I'm set and going," because we are dealing with most people's largest single asset.
Right.
And I think we forget that. Sometimes we spend too much time talking to other people in the business or other realtors, and we think everybody's buying or selling houses all the time. And most people, going back to Steve Murray's book and quoting Steve, real estate is a relatively infrequent, highly complex transaction, and the cost of making a mistake is huge. And, you know, that's difficult when some people are doing it as a hobby or on the side. And I'm not
Yeah.
disparaging people who
Yeah.
want to have their license or trying to build something or other things. But that's tough, and that's tough for our industry, and that's tough for the perception of realtors in many situations. We've taken a little bit of a beating reputational wise over the last couple of years. And, people don't necessarily understand what it is an agent does, especially when they're in the business to buy or sell every now, 8 to 10 years.
Right. Right.
And so it's hard. And so I think that's one of the challenges that I think's out there is how do we, in an industry where people are potentially hiring us on average once every 8 to 10 years, how do we educate them in those gaps in between about what is different between agents and what is different about brokerages? Because
Yeah.
I don't think the consumer really knows.
Well, and how do you stay top of mind over all that time?
Right. Dog bowls.
Yes. So I guess what are you most looking forward to? The fresh beans, the bud. Is there a new project or new technology you're about to roll out?
Um, we've had a couple of we had an acquisition last year, and it's when you talk about technology or products or other things, it's really refreshing to have. We have 4 managers in another city who are amazing, and they're almost like kids who come over and look in like your kid's toy box and stuff your kid hasn't played with in a while, and they're like,
Yeah.
"These are great," and your kid's like, "I've had those," and it really does give you new eyes as
Yeah.
to some of those things out there that you take for granted, and then you roll out something else. So I've been really excited to see them go out and now with some of these tools in their tool bag really, grow. And I think they grew by, 20+% last year.
Wow.
Yeah. Just by going out and having a story to tell and
Yeah.
seeing those people come in and start to, so that's been exciting. And so, for us, Charleston's certainly not built out, but new construction slowing down in Charleston.
Well, it's one of the fastest growing cities from what I recall from the keynote speaker
It
from the Better
is,
Business
and the
Bureau.
area is absolutely. And the state was percentage-wise, I think maybe the fastest growing state last year. But affordability is a real challenge. And so now, as adjoining cities in the Grand Strand, Myrtle Beach area or in the Columbia Midlands area are a little more affordable. We're really excited to be able to. This last year was the first time in our 60-year history where we'd really gone outside the 3-county Metro Charleston area.
Oh, wow.
And so now we're excited to be able to serve a greater portion of the state as we grow and kind of find more of those people who are our agents and who fit within the culture and model that we're building.
Fantastic. So, Michael, we've come to my favorite part of the show, which everybody gets the same question on Agent Brew and Agent Brew executive sessions. If you could give the young Michael, the real estate agent, a piece of advice, what would it be?
Um, I guess we all turn into our fathers over time. Is that true? That's
So,
not
oh, wow.
necessarily that's not necessarily the advice I would give. Um, I'd probably say a couple of things. You know, listen to people when they say how fast time flies.
Yeah.
Um, I was 16 years old giving out MLS books in the office. And for a lot of people on this call, they have no idea what MLS book is. And I used to, 10 years ago, I would say, or 10 or 15 years ago, I'd say it's like a phone book. And now they're like, I don't know what that is either. So I need a new reference material um, as to what that goes to. But what I would say is pay attention to time because it's, whether it's agents or us, agents aren't selling houses. Agents are selling their time. They're selling their
Yeah.
time when they decide which listings to take and which buyers to work with. And they think they're selling houses, but there are a unlimited, in theory, number of listings, and there's only so many hours in their day. And they've got to be precious and guardians of that time because it does go by so quickly.
When I was 16, my father said to me, youth is wasted on the young.
Yep.
And I never understood. I'm like, what? I don't understand. It doesn't make sense to me. Now I'm like, oh my gosh, youth is wasted on the young. Like,
And
what
I
was I
talked to my
doing?
16-year-old, and he doesn't understand, and I feel like my 82-year-old father, and I'm like, oh God. So that would be important. And two, and I think I've done a good job with this, is I would tell people to never forget who it is, whatever you're doing, who it is you're
Yeah.
working for, and why you're doing that. Technology is great, and technology makes it a lot easier than, I don't need to drive across town to have you sign an addendum to a contract. You
Isn't that the
know,
best? Like, and you don't have to,
amazing.
and you don't have to
It's
physically be there to pick
amazing,
up your phone messages.
which is amazing. And those make perfect sense. And you and I can have a face to face call without you traveling and us being face to face.
Right.
It makes perfect sense. But then you have somebody that tries to negotiate a contract over the phone instead of maybe sitting down with somebody face to face where you can see something's wrong or you can
Right.
see they're concerned about something. And that's not every deal. That's not going to be your investor who's just crunching numbers, but you can see what's going on and you're building that relationship. And so technology is a tool that helps us do what we need to do, but it should never be a crutch or it should never replace those things. They're important to do face to face, voice to voice, or at least where I can see you.
Right.
And so I think always focusing on and never losing sight of the customer, is so critically important. People think you can get people to click on a button and try to build a relationship based on social media. That's great. But that's not in and of itself going to create real relationships or a sustainable business in this industry.
Right. Right. Fantastic. Well, we've come to
I
the
don't know if
point.
that fits inside advice or not, but
No, it's fantastic. We've come to the point where I always like to um, give a motivational positive quote. And so I noticed that on your email signature, you end every email after your title and contact information. Mindset is the uniquely human ability to see the same thing in two different ways. I love that.
absolutely.
Is
I
that,
mean,
is
it's
that from
classic.
you or are you quoting someone?
Oh no, I think it's in quotes. I'm pretty sure it's in quotes. I'll double check. I'm wondering whether I even say who it's from or not in the email signature, but I should give credit to it being an English major. Um, no, we believe in the power of relationships. We believe in relationship selling. We are a ninja company. We believe in having a positive mindset. Along the same lines, a friend of mine in the office and I coach an under 13 soccer team.
Oh,
You know, and we give the boys a list of things that they can control regardless of the situation. They can control their effort. They can control their attitude. They can control their mindset. You can't control you can't control the weather. You can't control the field conditions. You can't control the other team. But there are so many things that we can control. And I think there are lots of people in the glass half empty world and not trying to be Pollyanna, not trying to be, you know, unrealistic, but I think how we choose to perceive things um, is important. People don't call people in their sphere because they don't want to hear from me. Well,
right.
says who? That's usually in our head, not in their head.
That's fantastic. So, I like to use Zig Ziglar. My father was a big Zig Ziglar fan. It was all about PMA, positive mental attitude. So I use all of his quotes going forward, and so I just always try to match a different quote which each. Excuse me, with each episode. So the one I chose for you because you work with a lot of first-time agents. You don't have to be great to start, but you have to start to be great.
Absolutely. And it's probably where one of those things that it sounds really like something he would say when I talk about our scale as a company.
Uh huh.
I said we're not good because we're big because we're good. And I mean, I never tell somebody you should work with us because we're a big company. I just say the fact that we're a big company tells you that we're a place where agents like to work for, whatever reasons. But that actually sounds like, I hope that's not something Zig said, because I kind of spun that one.
Well, Michael, thank you so much for being a part of Agent Brew Executive Sessions. We hope you'll come back for future seasons, but we certainly wish you and all of your agents much success in 2026. I know our partner was your keynote speaker at the first of the year, Ricky Carruth,
Was
who literally
great.
just before we started filming walked right past because he was here for a big event last night.
Ricky's great. And I do want to say something about you, and this isn't anything we've discussed, and somebody could call it strategy. I think it's just sincere engagement on y'all's part, because I think the lane you guys have chosen is to provide some agent services, not just another tech tool, but some agent services that help them do their business as they need to, whether it's legal, whether it's health, whether it's financial on the agent commission side, all of those components that a lot of people hadn't addressed in the agent environment. But the other thing you've chosen to do is really lean into the industry and get involved. And whether it's something like this, or whether it's appearing at the trade shows and other things, again, I think it's sincere and genuine. Somebody may call it smart. It can be both at the same time. But you've really done a great job engaging the agent community and saying, we're here to be responsive to these parts of what you may need, but we're also here just to kind of provide information to guide you and things like that through things like this. So I think it's great, and the presence you guys have created.
Well, thank you for that. I will say that it's about being authentic, right? And just really believing and having a passion. And so I came on board because I wholeheartedly believe in the services and our mission. And we talked about earlier about just the low credibility our industry has. And I see this as an opportunity for me to use my talents and connections across the country to really help elevate our industry, but also give them the tools to succeed and have this be a really viable career, and give agents the mindset and the tools to be that CEO and run their business as a business. And so I'm just excited. I love my opportunity to be here and talk with awesome people like you that are really making a difference in our industry on the ground. So I look forward to
appreciate it.
I look forward to future trade shows and seeing you at different events.
Absolutely.
And I want to thank our viewers and listeners for attending today's episode. But know that every Tuesday we release a new episode of Agent Brew or Agent Brew Executive Sessions. I'm your host, Eric Zollinger of Realty Co., reminding you it's a great day for real estate.